So Third Derivative is a new climate tech accelerator. It is a collaboration, technically a joint venture, with New Energy Nexus and the Rocky Mountain Institute. And the origin story was Rocky Mountain Institute looking at their portfolio of initiatives and looking at sort of the amazing work they do, which is a lot of it is studies and publication and consulting, so on and so forth. And they'd only really done a little bit that was like directly working with solutions. And that was through their Global Cooling Prize, which is a prize program for alternative, climate-friendly HVAC, basically. And they are looking at the whole climate picture and just trying to fill out their portfolio and things that they do. And so that was a bit of a thing they wanted to address. They looked around for partners and they found the New Energy Nexus. And that's specifically what we have been doing at New Energy Nexus, is running accelerators and grant programs and direct entrepreneur support programs of various stripes all over the world for many decades now. And so that was a natural fit. Hello and welcome. We can see you, Dr. Lin.
Hi.
Just so you know, we can see you. Hello.
Great. How did you do that, Lin? How did you get yourself visible?
So apparently, I think, kind of approved the request. So on the top right corner, there's a request for audio and video. So
there's Yi. Can you approve everyone in this room to speak and to be seen? Because I think Larry's in the room. Okay.
So everyone, please press the button on the top right. There is a request, share audio and video. So you have to, now I see. Larry, you're here. Hey, Jason, I'm going to add you here. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hello.
Yeah.
Let's see the cash flow t-shirt. Stand up.
Oh, no, it was yesterday. I changed clothes since then. Sorry.
That's more than some of us can say, Larry.
I'm sorry?
That's more than some of us can say.
So I bought that T-shirt at least 30 years ago, and it says "Cash flow, happiness is positive cash flow," and it's a statement that VCs use or used to use anyway, and maybe we don't see that much positive cash flow anymore. But I think if you Googled that expression in T-shirt, you'd probably find somebody that could make it for you. So.
Mm-hmm. You do it. Should I continue, John? I was sort of giving the origin story of Third Derivative.
Go ahead. So the corporate venture partner around 3D, right, etc.
Right. Just to like take a bit of like a temperature of the audience, Dr. Lin, Larry, have you heard of Third Derivative?
I don't think so.
What does the word Third Derivative mean to you?
Well, velocity, acceleration, and then one more, huh?
Jerk. Yes.
Right.
That's right. So the third derivative is like first derivative is like sort of direction. Second is change in direction. Third derivative is the change in change. So that's sort of like the joke that programmers like changing the rate of acceleration.
Right.
But it's also known as jerk. So we are just a big jerk of a program. But that's great. That keeps us humble. And so, as I was saying, it's a collaboration, joint venture between Rocky Mountain Institute and New Energy Nexus. We have a big sort of ecosystem play where we have, I lost count, 8 very large multinational corporate partners, 11 VC partners, and altogether we're going to fund and accelerate 50 companies. Right out of the box is our first year. A lot of various industries are represented. Energy and storage, transportation, buildings, and then industry, which is effectively everything else. And that's what's happening. We're actually 2 weeks from the launch. We did applications. We're announcing the cohort. That's all happening in the next couple of weeks. Should I go on or just direct me here, Yi or John. I'll dance for you, whatever.
Where are you based in? Where are you based, and what's your geographic reach?
That's a super good question. We're based everywhere and nowhere. So technically, we're fiscally sponsored by the Rocky Mountain Institute, but it's a global virtual program. And so there's no physical presence whatsoever.
Of interest across the globe, right? So startup in Argentina is just as interesting if they're solving a problem of interest for the themes that you've lined up, as would be one in California, as would be one in Beijing. It would all be interesting because there's no geographic restriction on how capital is deployed or how corporates are interested. Is that correct?
Right. There's always, some fun caveats in that. Effectively, yes. In practicality, I guess I'll say two things. One is that it's the heart of it is a corporate matching program, and so we tried to have like a customer-centric process where we ask our corporate partners, say, who of these applicants are you really excited about? We've already sort of pre-vetted the list. They tell us, and then we try to heavily weight that in terms of our acceptance of the program. But the players are global, right? So Angie is global. Wells Fargo is more domestic. Microsoft is global, and so it kind of spans. But it is a global program. People can come from anywhere, apply from anywhere. There are a couple of restrictions on the capital partners and who they can fund, but we have our own SPV, so we're guaranteeing $100,000 optional note for anyone that comes in. We're working on a few particularities with investing in China, but that door is also open.
So just so that everybody gets the structure right, Third Derivative is a competitive scaling program that New Energy Nexus is doing in partnership with Rocky Mountain Institute. And it has corporate venture capital from the likes of FedEx, AT&T, Microsoft, and Wells Fargo, and others. And then there's also venture capital, pure GPL construction, financial investors that are also in the community. And there have been themes of interest that are set up around logistics decarbonization and all different sectors of interest by these parties. And then through that competitive process of picking a call out, which we've already done, all these startups come to Third Derivative. They then are assessed, and then there is a potential for a $100,000 convertible note to people of interest. And then, of course, ongoing engagement around paid pilots, various trial engagements, and, of course, more venture capital from either the pure financial investors or from the corporates, but also purchase order engagement. If you have something that's ready to go and the corporate is interested in it, just go straight into, as you say, growing free cash flow, Larry. That's the idea. So how many corporates are now in Third Derivative? Ryan?
There's it literally is changing by the day, and so we've been, for example, in finalizing contract with Berkshire Hathaway Energy. They came on today, and so they'll be announced officially. There's about 8, and I'll just say them roughly, and I potentially could be saying something that hasn't been totally inked, but the potential list, let's say, is BP, Shell, BASF, Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Wells Fargo, Microsoft, and others. I need to look at the official list.
I mean, some of the interesting bit about this is that the decarbonization transformation of our society is not just about energy companies. The challenges that Microsoft faces and the challenges that Wells Fargo faces are real, and decarbonizing is a potential economic opportunity, but it's also definitely an environmental one. It's a culture building one for their employees. There's so many benefits to this decarbonization work that we do that people like AT&T, I mean, geez, what does a telephone company have to do with decarbonizing? Well, a lot. They have issues around remote power, right? I mean, remote power that power their antennas in places that no one goes to yet once a year. So you have microgrid potential there. So there's a lot of things that are really interesting about third derivative that we should probably let people know about. Anyway, that was good. All right, now that we're a two-way chat, I'll just give a quick view. New Energy Nexus started a program over a year ago. It was called Open Office. It was a very high touch mentor and coaching program for our funded portfolio initially. And there are over 100 companies in the funded portfolio of New Energy Nexus. And so we had the pleasure of working with those CEOs quite intensely. Very quickly, we started to get some very obvious pattern recognition around needs, things people wanted help on or support on or education on. And so we started creating an archive of learning, which has now grown into, I think it's over 30 sessions. You can go to the Open Office link whenever you want. It's all free. It's all open. It also is part of the DNA of New Energy Nexus is to share liberally our learnings and our best practices. So Open Office content is open. For over a year, we were doing 60-minute sessions with entrepreneurs. Danny and I agreed that it would just be for our funded CalSeed program. And then when we started to get into late February, because we had staff in China, we had already seen how the effect of this pandemic was going to hit. And we immediately recognized that CEOs were about to be in dire crisis. And so we said, let's open this up to any global clean economy CEO and let them sign up. And of course, the schedule got very, very, very busy. And thus the sort of professional podcast apparatus that I'm using today. And through that experience, we've helped over 100 CEOs. And it has been, I mean, Larry, as you know, even as a capital allocator, coaching and mentoring your CEOs is one of the best thing that you can do for them. I think we can all agree to that. Whether it's doing some networking, whether it's doing some business development work, whether it's helping them solve a logistics challenge or a scientific problem. Thankfully, you have the resources to be scientifically helpful, where I do not. Talk a little bit, Larry. I'd like to hear your voice on this mentoring and coaching part.
It's very important. I think the one of the perspectives is what's the difference between a startup company and an established company? And in my mind, one of the key differences is the extent to which resources are available in a large company. It's already been successful. There's a ton of capital in the economy, and it gets thrown at successful companies because there's no place else to put it where the risk is relatively low. 10-year treasury notes get 90 basis points, right? A startup company, on the other hand, is starved for resources and can't, just doesn't, has a hard time. It isn't going to get the resources it needs until it proves it can make money. And so a really great entrepreneur recognizes that and recognizes that mentoring and coaching is just part of that, getting resources, but it's a great way to get access to resources that you need to help you build your company. I guess that's my perspective.
Yeah, and just for everyone that doesn't know Larry, Larry is a very smart engineer scientist from MIT, but he's also now got a venture firm that's been very active in the clean economy for, I think, a better part of a decade and a half. Is that not right?
Yeah, it's fine. Well, it's longer than that, but that's fine. Yeah, you're very kind. You're very generous. We're very humble. We're very low profile. So.
Well, okay. But sorry to put you on the spot, Larry.
Yeah.
So we have some other folks in the room here now understanding a little bit about what third derivative is, a program which New Energy Nexus and Rocky Mountain Institute are doing together, and it's more of a corporate venture paired with traditional venture around the clean economy, and then the open office program, which is a mentoring and coaching program for CEOs. If someone, Wento Lee or Kurghan or Dr. Lin, Leon Shaw, Jason, anybody has questions, either you can type them in the box or you can just unmute yourself and say the question. We'd love to engage you and figure out how we can be helpful.
And then, Barry, like I'd love to hear, I was just sort of creeping on your LinkedIn and everything in the background there. I'd love to hear like an example of something that you're speaking of, like and for the purposes of a startup that is cash starved, to your point. How do you get them over the hump? And so you've I assume like mentored and grown small companies into big companies for, you know, besides just basic cash flow management. Any other tricks of the trade, or how do you do it?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is I would say is an attitude or a behavior, and so it's you know, I've heard other people use the word scrappy, and I would use that not in a negative way, but in a positive way. And so so let me, if you think about entrepreneurship along a spectrum, for example, on one end is somebody, the entrepreneur comes in and says, you know, I did this, and I did this, and I did this, and I can't get any farther unless you write a check. You know, I can't get any farther unless you write a check. So hold that in mind, right? So to me, that's a person who's working in a large company and looking for a budget. Okay. Now on the very far other end of the spectrum, and it is a spectrum, so people exist along the spectrum, and I think they can move, you know, to a more desirable or results oriented end. You know, the one out here is the individual that comes in and says, yeah, I had this great idea, and you know, and I went out and I talked to 75 or 80 or 90 customers, and you know, they had a little different idea about it than I did, and I was able to throw away the parts of my idea that didn't work, and I was able to incorporate these things that the customers told me that would make it more valuable for the problem they were trying to solve. And I tried to put myself in their shoes so I could understand their problem from their point of view. You know, so that was sort of the first part of it. And then, you know, I went away and it's this box, and the box has some electronics in it, and there's some software. And I had a prototype, you know, it was a Raspberry Pi prototype that I built for this other project. And I grabbed that off the shelf, and I added some more logic to it. I needed some more gates, and I needed another IO channel. And so I sort of, you know, I wire wrapped that together and made it work. And then I had this other piece of software that my cousin wrote, and I got him to come over and make some changes to it so the drivers would work a little better. And it doesn't quite exactly do what my customers were telling me, but I didn't have to go out and do a new printed circuit board layout, and I didn't have to go out and hire somebody to write, 9 months worth of 3 guys to write 9 months worth of code, you know, and have them in the closet and feed them Twinkies under the door for 9 months. You know, we kind of got something that was close. And I went, you know, I needed a box to put it in, so I went down to Home Depot and I saw this appliance that people use to clean their house, and it's not, obviously that's not what we're doing, but I just grabbed it, and then I took all the guts out of it, and I put this board and the software and so forth inside it, and I got a power supply from some vendor on the net, and I stuck that in there to power it so I get the right voltage coming out of it. And the guy down the street works for a tooling company, and I got him to, we're going to trade some stock. I'm going to give him some stock, and he's going to tool us up for me, and it's going to take about 6 months or whatever, but he's off doing that for me. And so I didn't have to, you know, and my lawyer, the lawyers, you know, I don't know whether you know this, but the lawyers will give you, you know, they'll get you going. They'll get you going on the stock and the NDAs and the intellectual property agreements and all that stuff. And they'll take payment later after you get funded. Oh, and you know what? Oh, shoot. I've got a meeting. I'm late for a meeting with my customer, and they're going to give me an order. I'm going. Are you coming? I'm going. Are you coming? Okay. So that's the other mentality out at the other end. On this end, it's I can't get any farther unless you write a check. On this end, it's I'm going. Are you coming? Right. So to your question, Ryan, there's some examples of that. I think it's every time you meet somebody, you think about how can they help me move my business along? Who do they know who can help me move my business along? Can I ask them? Right. And so it's that sort of doing it, right?
Yeah, Larry, that is a fantastic
also,
view, and everyone should be put to the chat window now, because what Larry's talking about is something that New Energy Nexus believes very, very strongly in, which is the clean economy is not a venture or die business. It is a all options type of business, and the CEO's responsibility, single and largest, is to capitalize the balance sheet however that is possible. And there are a lot of pathways that many CEOs are just not familiar with, whether it's awards or grants that you can win in a competitive process that are completely non-dilutive. You can win prize money in competitions. You can win foundation grants from certain counterparties. You should also be looking for paid pilots. As Larry said, go out and do the SBIR I-Corps program, call 100 potential customers, because you really don't know. A sample set of one, even if they said yes at one, doesn't really give you proper product market fit. And so I think that Larry's point here about the entrepreneur that is scrappy in a very positive way around non-dilutive capital, paid pilots, NREs, joint development agreements. These are all before you get any venture capital potentially, and these are all potentially before you even get your first PO that's going to pay you any money. So be extremely resourceful. We break it down in a session with Jonathan Tan, and it's right here in the Google Drive, but you can go ahead and take a look at that. It's about a 35-minute session, but take a look at that because there's a lot of learning in there, and it's exactly what Larry's talking about. Yeah. Be resourceful, and are you coming with me? Right? It's not like, oh, I'm here and I can't go anywhere else unless you write me this check today. No, it's not going to matter, right? It's like Larry doesn't want to write a check to you because that money is going to be absorbed into 1,000 places that are not going to push the mission forward.
So you did a deal with Jonathan? You did some coaching with him, or you did an open office session with him?
So the one just to the right there, the one that says drive.google.com, that is a session that Jonathan and I, in fact, Jonathan was the first, he was my guinea pig. Jonathan was my guinea pig with open office. So we had no idea what we were doing. And I just simply said, Jonathan, will you do this with me? And so he said, sure. And we spent our first 60 minutes together, and he was like, when are we going to do it again? And it was fantastic. And then we set off and we spent, a year. Now, Alex Fang is on his board, and I work with him on the financing. And, we're probably going to continue to work even now that I've departed from New Energy Nexus. I'll probably continue to work with Jonathan and Alex and Roger and the team. I think you're an investor there. Is that right?
We got very close, and we just couldn't get our pens out fast enough. So
it was a very crowded field.
He's very good, and he's an example of I'm going, are you coming? And he's done a lot of fabulous things to move Corshell along, and I can't volunteer his time, but if anybody in the room you had the chance to talk to him and ask him how give some advice on things he's done, that would be good. He had this great space up in the Northeast Bay that was dirt cheap for a long time. Good way to save money. Rent is so high in the Bay Area, and so he
also picked up a lot of equipment that they needed for the roll-to-roll process, really cheap from a prior way overfunded clean tech startup that they repurposed the equipment. I want to acknowledge someone else that just came into the room, which is Mark. Mark, if you can unmute yourself and say hello. Mark is working at Samsung for many years. Obviously, Samsung, a major lithium ion manufacturer, cell manufacturer, and he works in the open innovation group there. I'd like Mark just to say hi if he can. Mark. Yi, how does he do that? I think he has to request that on the upper right-hand corner. Is that right?
Yeah. So Mark, you have to press the button on the very top right, and so to
I see a question from Natalie.
Mark cannot do audio here due to his corporate policy.
Are most helpful for those outside the precise field of work.
Wait. Anybody else hearing that question being read?
Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
I'm glad that everyone else is doing it too.
Oh, Mark saying no audio. Okay. Oh, wait, he's saying sorry, no video. It's a corporate policy. Oh, now he's saying no audio. Okay, so forget you, Mark. You just listen. I'll sing your good praises. Mark is working at Samsung. They're a very major lithium-ion manufacturer. They're also interested in advanced energy storage solutions. Everyone knows the Samsung brand. People should be in touch with Mark with their innovative ideas because they have resources, whether it's a paid pilot, whether it's a non-recurring engineering contract, whether it's a joint development agreement, whether it's a purchase order, whether it's a venture investment, an acquisition. I think that forgotten. Thank you for the plug. Okay, you're welcome. I'm just letting people know that resources are available here. Someone's phone is ringing. I don't think it's mine.
Yeah, it's mine. It's going to go away.
Okay, sorry. All right, mute yourself then, Larry. Cool. I'm just taking a look at who else is in here. What else do people want to know about? Because we do have some CEOs here. We have Wento Lee, who's a CEO of something called Libama, which maybe it's in Indiana or in Alabama, sorry. Libama, I'm assuming it's Lithium Bama something. And then we have Jason, and I don't know what Jason does, but hello, Jason. Do you guys want to unmute yourself? Rachel Pearson. Tell us what your interests are. How can we help? Don't be shy. Unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
You have. Yeah, you have to. Yes, we can hear you, Jason.
Okay, my internet is having a hard time, so that's a couple of questions. So, in the battery space, many people are having to, eventually going to be selling to large companies, whether they're OEMs or battery. Basically, if you guys have suggestions, thoughts on how to think about that process, especially perhaps for technical entrepreneurs without that experience. Another question is on commercialization strategy. One common piece of advice is, pick up each market, a small market, maybe a niche market, and scale up from there. But that can take a lot of time and can potentially divert resources that you allocate to the larger, higher impact market. The strategy of starting with a very small market, is that really good advice, or are there certain cases when really that do?
I think that Larry's advice is, well, we all believe this, which is getting a lot of feedback. People, can you mute if you're not talking? When it comes to a small company doing a technical solution for a potential customer, many of these big potential customers will take your phone call if you're not trying to sell them something. And that's really what the iCore process is about, is get your call list set up, ask for advice, and then do your unique selling proposition discovery. And it does take 100 phone calls at least. Yeah. And it does take 100 emails at least. Yeah. So if you say, I can make this specific thing lower cost, safer, lighter, smaller, whatever, find out if it's valuable to the person you are going to try and sell it to. And if it's only this much lower cost, it may be a nothing to them because they have to change other tooling, they have to change manufacturing process, something, right? But they'll tell you that. They'll say, listen, it has to be X% lower cost than what I'm currently doing, or it's not worth me switching. Because you might be just below that line. You might not be at that threshold that they require. So making those I-Core phone calls are so important. It's part of getting to product market fit. You have to be doing product market fit and product design in parallel. And it is a ridiculously wonderful process, yet continually frustrating. So be prepared for that. Jason, what are you thinking about doing, just so we have a little bit of a clearer view? You're saying you're a technical founder. What type of innovation? Yeah, obviously energy storage, but is this in the lithium family? Is it in a metal family? Is it in another place? Where are you looking to participate?
Sure. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. I'm a battery data scientist. I've spent a number of years as a battery scientist at battery companies, as well as a data scientist at a machine learning company. And I'm looking to really combine these two, particularly in the electrolyte R&D space. There's basically in other industries that design chemicals, in particular pharmaceuticals, for example, there's a lot of use of machine learning to basically design new molecules and design formulations. I haven't seen a lot of this in the battery space. And looking to basically combine these two worlds so for lithium-ion electrolyte arm.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You sent me an email, since yesterday, and I saw that in your email, so you have to think about who you have to think about who the customers are. I mean, I think if you had something going, if you had a demonstration, I think you could get in the door and show it to potential customers. I think I heard yesterday that 80% or something of the battery manufacturing market was dominated by 4 companies: Panasonic and CATL and Samsung and another one, LG Chem, I guess. If that's true, you have to think about how large your market is. I also think I heard yesterday, and Joe, you can verify this, that there's 70 or 80 or 90 companies in the Bay Area working on battery stuff. I believe I think it's at least that much. So, but they're all startups. So, where is the market for this?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. The information about the oligopolies that are forming in the lithium ion space is a true statement, but there's still a $30 billion annual business for lead acid batteries globally, right? So lithium ion, despite the fact that many people believe that Elon Musk invented lithium ion batteries, it's not the only place where energy storage is being used. Lithium ion is still prohibitively expensive in most of the world. And so if you're looking at doing deployments for, let's say, 3-wheeled vehicles, 2-wheeled vehicles, stationary storage for residences, most cases outside the United States, this is done with lead acid. And that's still a $30 billion annual business and growing at 4 to 5% CAGRs over the next foreseeable 5-6 years. So I think you're absolutely right. Like, if you're looking at lithium ion, find out how big that market space is, and you might have to work with a giant, multinational like LG Chem or Samsung or CATL or someone else. Those are, in our experience, more difficult to engage with.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Are we helping you?
I think Larry makes a good point. You also make a good point, Larry, is find a softer part in the marketplace where you can even test your theory of value, because maybe you can't even get a phone call back from LG Chem. So test your theory of value with somebody else. Saft, for example. Saft is a global energy storage manufacturer. They've specialized in very, very high-end military applications for energy storage, so less cost-sensitive customer. Saft is a great place to be, trying your unique selling proposition or your value hypothesis.
This is the fundamental friction that we're trying to solve. So it's great that Third Derivative has these big corporate partners, and they are challenging to work with because there's so many people, there's so many business units, and every business unit, every person has their own sort of personal driver and professional KPI. same necessarily. And so squaring the circle and navigating the corporate hierarchy and who do you talk to is one of the biggest things we teach in third derivative, because that's the game we're in. It's also not the only game, right? So working with a corporate, it sounds good, it can be good, but generally, and this is a problem that we try to solve with our partners through innovation sandboxes and things like that, it's just a long time to get to a no, generally. And so are there faster ways that you can go direct to consumer and just look at the entire thing as lean startup, build, measure, learn cycle, build, measure, learn. And so if you're not able to have a product in someone's hand and get feedback, then you're not doing that. And so can you go direct to consumer, or even just have someone that represents sort of your most customer sort of represent for that?
I think that's good advice, Ryan. I would caution entrepreneurs, though, that energy storage is one of those safety things that in order to deploy even direct to consumer in a small number, like 1 or 2 or 5 or 10, you're going to have only specialty situations where the counterparty has the proper isolation from the grid or has the proper waiver on safety. I mean, it's not UL approved, I would assume. It's not ETL approved. It's not TUV approved, this kind of thing. So safety is a really, really big factor here, especially when dealing with energy storage. That, yeah, it's great to try and get direct to the user. It just has its own challenges that people should be aware of.
Jason, are we helping you out?
Yes, definitely. Or trying to get to an end user more quickly. It reminds me of the question I had about commercialization strategy. This is common advice that I've heard. It sounds like that's being reiterated here, that you really want to start with a beachhead market where the value is higher and people can try things out faster. You don't go automotive OEM right off the bat.
Well, that's what Tesla did. Tesla came out with a very high-end roadster, niche market, really price insensitive, limited manufacturing capability, lots of sizzle, lots of sex, lots of really exciting stuff in the product, captured everybody's imagination, and then came down over time in price, in cost, to where, now they're not quite there yet, but you can see they're coming. They've done a great job in terms of getting lower and lower cost and higher and higher volumes. So yeah, that's a great strategy.
I would definitely stay away from automotive, though.
Yeah.
I would stay away from automotive just because, whether you know it or not yet, Jason, you'll find out, being designed into an automotive anything will take at least 5 years.
Yeah, it takes forever. Yeah.
Unless you want to hold your breath, and it has additional security, it has additional safety, it has additional vibration, try to do something much easier.
Yeah.
All right, we've had Nad join us, Nad Karim, and also I think Wentao Lee wanted to say something. He came on just a moment ago. Wentao, do you have a question?
Yeah, kind of have a lot of unanswered questions, or mostly need some guidance. So I have this great battery technology that I think solve the decades-old problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you. So I think the technology has been recognized by 2 SBIR, so from National Science Foundation and the DOD. The concept has been verified. So ever since the beginning, I was thinking of when I look at some other startups, they have the big idea, and then they get funded, and they get the proof of concept, and then they get the funding for whatever prototype, and then go along smoothly. So it's kind of very hard for me since the beginning. So I have this concept. Of course, one of the issues is that since it's proprietary, I cannot disclose the exact content, the innovation. So that makes it harder to convince others unless it's under the confidentiality in the government agencies like UNICEF and the others.
Well,
So
Wentao,
I think now,
Wentao, give us some help here. You don't have to talk about exactly how you're doing it or what you're doing. What is the outcome? Is it lower cost? Is it safer? Is it like, what does your thing do to whom?
so the innovation solved the lithium dendrite problem by that's different from the solid state approach. So it can have higher energy density, lower cost, safety. So it's a completely paradigm shift actually with the new material.
Okay,
lot
and
of,
this is something you'd sell to someone like Samsung or CATL or a manufacturer of lithium-ion cells because you're going to help them avoid dendrites. Is that right?
It can be depend on the resources available because it's the anode material. So the anode material can be like a sold as a product, or if there's enough resources, we can produce the battery ourselves. So I think currently my preferred method is to sell the anode material as the product because the manufacturing of the battery take too much resources, and there are already some giant guys over there.
Okay, so this is a good question. From what I've heard so far, if I'm not misunderstanding, you have some sort of anode technology that helps current lithium-ion manufacturers avoid dendrite creation in the lithium industry. And that, of course, is helpful because they have higher energy density, lower cost, better safety, etc. Okay, so your key customer, your target customer for this, my guess is that it is the 4 major lithium manufacturers, one of which, if he's still on the, no, he's left, Samsung, LG Chem, CATL, Panasonic. Those are your customers, but there are other lithium-ion manufacturers that I think you got to prove it. I mean, what Larry said before, Larry's narrative before is something that I've lived so many times that when he was saying it, it was making my heart race, because this is exactly how you should do it. Is you should take your anode, if it's so special, tear apart someone else's battery, put it in, make it work, run it 1,000 cycles or 2,000 cycles.
Yeah, at least 500. Yeah, at least 500.
Yeah, at least 500.
Yeah, and prove. And build a bunch of them. Use some of the. You see if you can get some grant money so you get access to the equipment at Slack or somewhere else that will allow you to get the images, see the images over time. There are a lot of resources available. I would go after them and build up enough stuff that you can demonstrate it works.
Yeah.
Half cells are probably not enough. I mean, start with half cells, but eventually you got to get to full cells.
It's starting, so just the full cell in coin cell only now, because no pouch cell data yet. So the new materials still have a lot of still need to be improved. There's already show improvement over the other competing technology. And theoretical aspect is great. So I think I'm going to continue to engage the government funding the phase 2. So what I have is now is the phase 1 from 2 phase 1. So I'm going to get the phase 2. The phase 2 will enable me to get the prototype, and then I think by that time maybe everyone will be able to see.
Well, I like to say in my mentoring sessions, show don't tell. And I think that's really what Larry was illuminating before, is you can wave your hands, you can have a beautiful PowerPoint, you can suggest that this is all true, But if you can show someone real, actual data, and you can put something in someone else's hands and say, this is what I'm talking about, it becomes far more material to the counterparty. And your conversations get far more rich more quickly. So I would suggest, as Larry said, go out and figure out how you can make full-scale cells, test them up to at least 500 cycles, do some radiography on it to show, yes, we're not having dendrite growth here, or whatever your key attribute is. That's how you have to do this, and you should be accessing all the non-dilutive fund resources possible. CEC has resources, CPUC, federal, DOE, DOD is investing in energy storage as well. So there's a lot of resources available. Maybe you want to check out opengrants.io. It's a platform that's aggregating all of these grant options. It's called opengrants.io. And you may find
or talk to Sean Garby, who was here yesterday. I think maybe you sat on his session, Momentum. I think it's Momentum.io. Hey, I'd like to go hear Stan Whittingham. Is that okay if I drop off?
Totally.
Okay.
Awesome
All right.
to see you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Joe, good to see you.
Good to see
Larry,
you.
Keep up.
Larry, I just want to say hi. I saw your talk at the roundtable yesterday. I thought it was quite informative, and sorry I came on rather late.
I'm so sorry you saw it.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
And you know, I've been in the battery world for quite a few years. Started 2 different battery companies in the middle of a NSF grant for another one. So you know, it's all very interesting and informative.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
If I can help you in any way, let me know.
I'd love to chat with you sometime. How would I get in touch with you?
LKELLY.
LKELLY
at
Yep.
KELLY.
KELLY.
V as in Victor, E as in Elizabeth, N as in Nancy. .com. Well, that will work.
Okay.
Right.
I'm just gonna type this just to make sure I got it right, because there is huge potential for a typo here. L Kelly at Kelly
Ventures.
VEN.com. Is that correct? I just sent it to you on a text.
Yeah. Email or on a
It's on this right in here.
It's in the shared one. Larry, look at the chat window.
Oh, in the chat.
Yeah,
in the chat.
I just put in the chat window. Nad, you can see it in the chat.
Yeah,
window.
that works. Yeah, that works.
Kelly
at
kellyven.com. Okay.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
You gotta go.
Yeah.
Bye,
Ned,
Larry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to talk to you, Ned.
All right. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Stay positive, test negative.
Good advice anytime.
Yeah.
All right, good. We have about 3 more minutes here. Nad, did you have something you wanted to get? Do you want to talk about?
You know, I apologize. Like I say, I was just in the middle of something else, and I just jumped in at the last minute, and it was I literally saw this is the kind of discussion I wanted to have, but so what should I don't even know what I would get out of this, but I mean, I thought I'd better jump on the keynote before the end as well. But
Yeah, do it. We're all getting off anyways. I'm being told by Yi that we've got to get out. So Stanley is already started, and that's where everyone's going. All right.
yeah,
Bye-bye.
And